Thanks for joining me, bringing your yoga to your practice. Let's close our eyes and just settle in. Let's deepen our breath and feel it moving through the body. See if you can bring your throat over your heart over your belly. See if you can bring yourself forward a little bit to the fronts of the sitting bones so your hips spill just a little. As if they were, your whole hip bowl there was like a bowl of water. And the water could just gently lap at the front edge. And then you create a little boundary there, as if you wanted to lift that water up and place it back in the bowl. And then you breathe again, feeling that steady breath that brings you here. Our theme for this class is Stiram Sukham Asanam, where we work on creating steadiness in the body and releasing into ease. Sometimes I call that just drop and let go, drop and release, where you feel the steadiness that is the infrastructure of you. And then like a beautiful wool cape, the skin and the muscles and the fascia drape over those bones as if they're just hanging heavily on that. And in that way, we take our seat, asanam, steadiness, the ease, and the seat that is ours, that is our truth. On any given day, that truth can shift. And then start to do just a little shimmy with your ribs. So you take your ribs left and right, like left, right, left, right, left, right. And you just do a little shimmy to loosen up the kinesthetic habit that is you, and you just kind of feel into, as you shimmy there, you just feel into which way does the shimmy feel more easy, which way feels more stable. A couple more breaths there. And then bring that to a soft close. Take a breath there and just let those ribs just settle and square over the hips, over those heavy, steady hips. And then bring your hands to your ribs, so your thumbs on the back ribs and your forefingers are on the front ribs. Breathe into your hands for a breath so that you inflate the ribs like bellows. Exhale completely. And then you're going to start to do rib polishing. So as if that rib cage sat on a marble countertop and you were just going to polish a little circle there with your ribs. It doesn't have to be really big, but what I want you to focus on is roundness. So you want to just work slowly into that circumferential roundness of the polishing. So you just kind of get to know how those ribs move, how they don't move, what engages, what doesn't engage. And then go to the other, into the other direction. And usually when you go slow enough, you can kind of feel into which rib is more stable, which is a little less stable. And you just breathe there. Beautiful. And then let your hands glide up into fists right underneath the armpits, like you could tuck your fists right into your armpits. And I want you to squeeze those fists with your armpits and try to roll the fists backwards. So you start to feel that squeezing, lifting, and like you're externally rotating. Squeezing and lifting, getting that deep infrastructure, opening of the intercostals. And then you're going to keep those fists there and just draw your left elbow to your left rib and use your fist to lift up your right armpit. So you're tilting to the side. And let your hips be heavy. Drop them down. Drop and release. And then from inside, pull up the belly and try to get that fist, that right fist to the sky. One more breath. Waking up those intercostals. Good. And then rooting down through those hips. Inhale and slowly come up and take a cleansing breath. We're going to try that second side. So you lift up the right fist into the right armpit. The left elbow tucks down into the rib, and you start to breathe up. Like, let the hips get heavy, drop them down, but pick up the belly and see if you can lift that left fist rib space into the sky. Just breathe there. One more breath. And then let the hips be heavy as you inhale and come out of it. Take the fists out from underneath those armpits and just move the hands around. That might have been a lot for your wrists, so just take a moment to unkink and move the fingers. Maybe even squeeze and open. And then let's go ahead and take our right hand to our left knee. And I'm going to have you reach for that knee and literally grab it. So it's going to pull up into the body. And as it pulls up into the body, also pull the front body back. So remember that picking up of the water that's trying to spill out of that pelvis. Keep that pelvis spilling, but pick up the belly as you're just lifting up that water and gently placing it back in its bowl. And then you look over that left shoulder. You bring the throat back in line with the spine. You feel the helium balloon that's lifting up the upper palate of the mouth, and you breathe. And then very gently drop that knee down slowly. Come back to center and just take a cleansing breath. Second side, we take that left arm to the right knee, literally reach for it so you can pick it up. And you're going to use that leg isometrically. It's going to want to drop and release. So you're going to feel maybe that the thigh bone, the head of the thigh bone, right where it touches the torso, is heavy now. So it just drops down. And that helps to stretch because the psoas attaches to the inner trochanter, the inner edge of that thigh. So you drop it down so you get a little stretch. And then you pull up on that knee and rotate around the spine. Remembering that you want the water to spill out of the pelvis, or at least attempt to, but then your abdominals lift up that water and just drop it back inside. And you look over that right shoulder. And you bring the throat back in line with the heart and the belly. And you breathe. Those ribs both inflate as equally as possible, but they also release together. And down. Last breath. Beautiful. And then very gently inhale to come out as you release that thigh. Let's just take our arms out to the side like a big T. Rotate the palms face up from the shoulder joint. Lift up the shoulders and see if you can not lift the chin so much, but lift the heart up even as you root feet and hips down. Pick up that belly. There's that spilling of the pelvis and the gentle uplift of the belly that just drops the water back inside, as if it were probably more like jelly, where you could lift up the whole thing and drop it back in. And then from here, come back to neutral, but inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Take your palms, interlace them, palms to the sky, or fingers interlace, palms to the sky. And just take a cleansing breath here, imagining again that you could drop and release those hips. Boom, they just drop down and in. The pelvis wants to spill. The low belly picks up that whatever's inside that belly, lifts it up and drops it back in. As you reach up through side bodies, from hips, through ribs, through armpits, through elbows, through wrists, and you stretch. 1 or 2 more breaths here. Keep going. I want an extra centimeter with each breath. And then very gently release your hands and just take them out to the side and then just bring them up into prayer and take a moment here to pause and feel the shifts and changes in your body already. We'll begin our practice by giving thanks for this moment. We can come and find mind-body connecting and opening and releasing. Inhale deeply. And exhale, release your hands. You're going to bring that block out from underneath you. Come to hands and knees, and we'll take cat-cow with our hands pointing backwards. And before you go into cat-cow, I want you to find neutral spine. So that means spilling of the pelvis, but the picking up of the low belly. And then you're going to melt the heart as if it could just drop and release between your arms. You want that steadiness of the arms and legs and the core, but the melting, the dropping of the heart without losing that steadiness. From here, just waggle your tail left and right. And you might notice that it's not a straight side-to-side motion. You might feel a little upturn here and there, maybe at the end, almost like it's smiling. And you just go back and forth like that, just mobilizing that area of the body. The fingertips grab the floor just to create some steady infrastructure. 1 more breath. Good. And then come back to center. Toes are tucked under. And you go ahead and peel the heels of the hands off the floor as you sit back on your heels, the hands straight back. We inhale, we fly. It's the goofy finger interlace, the opposite one we're used to. Press hands to the sky, palms to the sky. Begin to stretch up from hips through ribs, through armpits, through elbows, through wrists. There's the spilling of the pelvis, the picking up of the belly. Dropping the contents of that pelvis back inside. Couple more breaths. Throat over ribs. Throat over heart. Heart over belly. Last breath. And then gently release those arms all the way around and come back to hands and knees. This time you're going to stretch your right leg out behind you. And I want you to look down underneath you. And just make sure that all 5 toes are equidistant from the floor. And then you push yourself back up to straight. There's the spilling of the pelvis and the picking up. And then you take your left arm forward. Bird dog pose. And then find the steadiness of the legs, the arms, kind of the infrastructure, the belly. But then see if you can soften behind the heart. 1 more breath here. Good. Place the left hand down on the floor. Swing the right leg over to the left so it crosses the other foot. And then turn and look at it. You just feel that stretch through the body. And then press that back heel away from you. So you're going to feel like that steadiness, that steady infrastructure. You pick up the belly and you look 1 more time. Beautiful. You're going to come on back, swing that leg up, bend the knee, and just do little pulses. So you start to wake up the hamstring and the booty. And you just want to feel that coming online. 1 more breath. And then you let that leg drop down so that the top of the foot comes to the floor and the knee is in front of the other knee. And then you push the hands forward and down and you curl, cat tilt. And you're going to press the feet and the hands into the floor and try to pick up the belly and spread open the back and the ribs and the upper back. And then release that. Release both feet, tops of the feet to the floor. Sit on back, Vajrasana. Let your hands float back and sweep up to the sky. First finger interlace, palms to the sky. Pause for a moment. Let there be the spilling and the picking up. And then the stretch from ribs or hips to ribs. Ribs to armpits, armpits to elbows, elbows to wrists. Throat over heart, heart over belly. And just a simple practice of aligning and finding the length in the body. Good. From here, you're just going to do a little twist. You're going to twist over to the right without losing. So if you were a barbershop pole, you weren't going to bend it. You're not going to topple it. You're going to keep it longer and stronger. It spins around itself as you look over to the right. And you breathe, lifting up one more reach. And then you come back to center. There's that barbershop pole. You always want to make it longer. So as you spin over to the left, you find the length, and then you reach up one more big stretch. Beautiful. And then release the hands. Come back to center. Roll the shoulders, cleansing breath. And we're going to come back to our hands and knees for number 2 bird dog. So toes are tucked under. And we take a moment to feel the spilling, the picking up, and the melting of the heart. Left leg goes back, straight behind you for bird dog. Right arm goes forward. And you just breathe here. Seeing if you can pick up the front of the body and glue it into the back of the body. And you're just breathing steadily as if you could stretch through that heel, stretch through those fingers in opposite directions, stretching out the body. Little shoulder shrug to create side body long. Little heart softening. Beautiful. Bring your right hand down. Swing your left leg across to the right, crossing over. Turn and look at that foot as best you can. And then drive your energy through the heel. There's going to be a temptation here for the head to hang as you look. I'm going to have you bring your throat up in line with your heart and look that way. And you're going to drive through that heel and see if you can get a little more length there. And then you inhale, come gently out of that, bring the leg back up, bend the knee, and you just pulse to the sky, waking up hamstring and glutes. Glutes will really help you feel steady and powerful. Pick up the belly, soften the heart. Good. Then as you exhale, pull that knee all the way through. So you're on the top of your foot now. You press the hands down and forward and you curl back like you're trying to do cat tilt. Use your abdominals and try to spread out the back body. Low back, mid back, upper shoulders. And then release that. Both tops of the feet to the floor. Sit on back in Vajrasana. Last reach. Arms glide back. We sweep overhead. Goofy finger interlace. There's going to be a tendency for the chin to want to glide forward. So glide that sides of the jaw back. Let the pelvis spill, but pick up the contents. And then stretch through ribs, through hips, through ribs, through armpits, through elbows, through wrists. Another breath here. See if you can make that barbershop pull long. You're going to turn to the left this time. And you're continually using all those deep infrastructure muscles to make you longer, even as you twist. And then you come back to center, and you twist the other way. And barbershop pole gets longer. Neck over, heart and heart over belly. Last breath. Beautiful. Come back to center. Just let your hands drape down and rest on your lap and take a cleansing breath. Beautiful. From here, we're going to rock forward, tuck our toes. We'll use our left hand to swing our left leg through to a lunge. The hands come onto the front knee, that left knee. And then we're going to push down and forward as we find the spilling and the picking up of the contents of the belly. Now that same action. And then you sweep your right arm out to the side and overhead, and you bow over the left leg. It's really over to the side. And you're feeling that stretch through the whole right side of the body. So you want to do the spill and the pick up of the belly, and the ribs also pull back. And you just breathe and stretch through that psoas, rectus femoris, quadratus, or quadricep, and the side ribs. One more breath. And then gently release that. If you can, you just come on back into runner's lunge. Maybe you have blocks here, and you just bow forward. Whew, always tight, those old hamstrings. So breathe here into what's tight. And then come on up. You can rock a little bit just to get some nice movement in the body. And you can breathe along with that. Inhaling and exhaling. Let's try second side. So we're going to swing that left leg back as best we can. Drop it by the right. And then I like to just grab that right thigh and swing that right leg forward to a lunge. When the hands press down and forward, we feel the spilling of the contents of the pelvis. We pick it up and place it back inside that bowl. And then we sweep the left arm up and over and start to tilt over to the right. Remember, there's infrastructure there. So the legs are your part of your infrastructure, and the steadiness of the pose, so is that belly. And then there's an ease, a softening around the heart and face. Just breathe through that whole left side body. Try not to let the chin jut forward. You draw it back slightly. Beautiful. And then release. Bring that hand to the floor or blocks. Press on back through that front leg so you get runner's lunge. That hamstring stretch. Be easy with yourself. Don't be afraid to move left and right, or even a little pulsation or forward and back, just to bring some energy into that as you stretch the hamstring. See if you can release tension from your torso. Just drop into the pose, drop into the legs. And then inhale, come forward into a lunge. And then again, we do that little movement, just back and forth. Waking up the lymphatic system and the muscles and the fascia. Everything's getting a little ringing out here. Okay, you're going to sweep that leg back. Keep the toes tucked under, but swing the toes as wide as the sticky mat. Walk your hands back to your knees and then press down and back and up into ragdoll. So you're standing, knees are soft, and you're just hanging forward, letting the back stretch out. Legs are strong, so think pressure cooker. They're steady and strong. You could even take your elbows and migrate them back in between the knees or shins so that you have something to pressure cooker onto. You still have that spilling of the belly, but the picking up of the abdominals. One more breath here. And then from here, we just walk ourselves slowly forward into downward facing dog. The hands and the arms are infrastructure. They're steady. So are the feet, ankles, and legs. You bring up that steadiness all the way up into the body, breathing it in. And then you exhale and see where can you release tension, where can you feel more ease. Another breath or two here, just enjoying the stretching. It's okay to wag your tail. Just encourage that gentle unsticking of body parts. And then from there, tippy toes and slow walk. Take your time, like you can even pause after each step and just feel the stretch of that leg. And you'll walk slowly. We'll meet when we're both ready. We'll find our way into Uttanasana. Blocks or no blocks. Knees are unlocked. And we bow forward. And we start to feel the infrastructure of our legs growing as we arrive. It's like we're just picking up the muscles and hugging them along the legs, pulling them up into the body. One more breath. The easiness of the torso just hanging over you. Drop into the pose and release. Letting gravity just drop you down. And then from here, inhale halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Utkatasana. You can bring your arms, you can float them straight forward and then plug them back. This is hard, but you try to pull the shoulders back so that they're on the backs. You try to pull the thighs back like you're sitting on a little kid's chair. You pick up the contents of the belly and then you sweep all the way up and over, and arms come all the way around and into prayer. And you just take a moment to close your eyes and breathe. Maybe notice that the breath is a little more freer in the body than it was at the beginning of practice. Exhale, release your hands. Inhale, fly, bring them up overhead. Big stretch. Exhale, bow forward. Uttanasana, standing forward fold. Inhale, halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, bend both knees and take your right leg back to a lunge. If you have blocks handy, probably should have mentioned this before, but if you have blocks handy, grab them to do a little gymnastics to get there. So we're back into our lunge when you get those blocks. And then you're going to anchor your back foot so it's square to the back of the mat. And you just take a moment to arrange yourself so you're steady here. So the left knee goes right over the second and third toes. And then you grab those blocks and you walk them to the right. So the lower body looks like warrior two. The upper body looks like downward facing dog. And the blocks can be on their highest level or their mid-level. But I want you, the nice thing about the blocks here is that it allows you to feel your legs, because the arms aren't just all the way to the floor. So take a moment to regroup in the legs, to bring that steady energy up the legs. We'll be here for a couple more breaths. And then you can imagine as those legs get steady and the hips are steady, that the spine just lengthens up between those two steady pylons. And you just every once in a while take your inner mind's eye or your actual eye and check your left knee, making sure it's still over the second and third toes. And you can look down at your back leg and make sure it's rooted all four corners. We've got one more breath here. There's the spilling of the hips and the picking up of the contents. Last breath. And then from here, walk yourself back and to a lunge, to lift the back heel, and then drop the knee to the floor, and then just push on back to runner's lunge. So you just take a load off of those steady, strong legs. Give them a rest. And let your back just roll over that strong leg. And then we're going to try second side. So we're going to come to a lunge. We're going to rock forward and back, step forward into standing forward fold, bow deeply. And then inhale halfway up, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, bend your knees and take your left leg back to a straight leg lunge. You're going to anchor the back foot and take a moment to arrange that. Make that work for you. Front knee right over second and third toes. It stays there really strongly. You walk your hands to the left. So it looks like a cross between warrior two and downward facing dog. And you look at that front knee and foot and make sure they're strong and steady. Usually I notice that I feel my right leg more, so I've got to peek back at that left leg and root all four corners down and see if I can even take the inner thigh back and wider. And then the spine just traverses up the center of the body right through those two strong anchor points. And you can get a little spilling, but also the little picking up. And I know this is building infrastructure because I can feel it. So one more breath here. And then walk your hands back to frame that front foot. Lift your back heel up to the sky. Drop your back knee to the floor. Sit on back, runner's lunge. And just appreciate that stretch, remembering that the legs are steady and anchored, but the spine comes up between the center. So you just keep rehearsing that mental picture until the body can see it too. Beautiful. And then you're going to come back up to a lunge, walk your blocks to the left, keep going, and eventually you're going to come up, back, and turn your feet to the long edge of the sticky mat. So you're in Prasarita Padottanasana. The blocks are handy here. So you got Prasarita, but you think downward facing dog with the blocks. So you just keep the hips over the heels. So they're going to want to come forward. And I want you to pull them back so you get a stretch through the side body. And you let the contents of the belly start to spill. Knees are soft. And then you pick up those contents and just gently place them back inside. Bring the front ribs into the body as well and feel that stretching. Now you could stay here. Maybe that feels really good to you. Or if you wanted, you could bring your hands down to the floor till they're between your feet and you just let your head hang. Take another breath here. Whichever choice you make, you're going to sweep your arms up around behind you, interlace your fingers and take your knuckles to the sky. Again, making sure that you unlock the knees, you spill the contents of your hips, and you pick it back up and place them in without changing the shape of the body. One more breath. Beautiful. Keep those strong infrastructured legs, but you're going to inhale halfway up using your core until you're up high enough that you can place your hands right underneath you again. So your wrists are right underneath your shoulders. Take your left hand and place it right underneath your face. Take your right hand and sneak it around the back so that the forearm is on the ribs. And then the forearm lifts the ribs up to the back of the head. And then you open your right shoulder to the sky. Little twist. So there's a little uplift there of the ribs and then a little twist. One more breath. If you'd like to, you can try extending that arm to the sky, but don't forget that barbershop pull-like energy that pulls the spine long, even as the ribs wrap around to open you up. And the legs are still strong, infrastructured pylons, I guess you could say, rooting down into earth. And then release that. Woo, woo, woo. Take your right hand underneath your face. Pause. Take a breath. Bring your left hand around behind you so that the forearm rests on the back of the ribs. And it gently presses and lifts them up so that you're never crunching the back ribs into the back body, into the low back. You want space there in that waistline. And then you just start to press down the standing hand and open the top shoulder to the sky. Again, using the back of the wrist or hand to lift those back ribs up. If it feels good to you, just stay. If you want a little bit more, you stretch that arm up to the sky, remembering the barbershop pole, the strong, sturdy legs. Opening, looking up. Last breath, wrapping those ribs around the body. And then releasing. Whew. And you'll put your weight on your hands and just drop down onto your knees and take a cleansing breath. And you'll take a couple moments just to rest there and let all that new information settle into the body. bringing more awareness, greater resilience, and steadiness. Stiram Sukham Asanam, steady and easeful, helps you take your seat. From here, we're going to do twisted childs. Just all these twists are going to just help unravel a lot of tension out from our ribs. But here's the deal. The steadiness of the legs are really key to the twist, because when we twist, it's easy to want to kind of lift a hip and go with that twist. But if we keep them grounded, the legs strong and grounded, we lift up that barbershop pole and twist around. It's just a much more efficient, safe way to do it. So here we go into twisted child. So your legs are like child's pose. So big toes are touching, knees are wide and apart. The hands and wrists are right underneath the ribs. We keep the legs, that's that strong infrastructure, so you can tuck the toes if you want to really feel the infrastructure. And you just pause for a moment to feel that the ground energy, that earth energy coming up into the body. And then from there, you open your right arm to the sky. And again, you feel the earth energy of the right hand or the left hand. If I'm mirroring you, I've already forgotten, so I apologize. But whatever hand's on the floor, you root that down along with the legs. And then you try to stack the ribs one on top of each other. So it's really the ribs that are moving. The rest is staying stable and steady. Stira. Stiram. And then you release that top hand. Swing it through the window of the arm and the leg, and rest your temple on the floor. And you can stay there, or if you want a little bit more, you bring your other hand to the crown of your head and you open the elbow to the sky, creating more rib twisting. Remember, the legs are strong and steady, and there's a barbershop pole energy that pulls you out of the waistline. And you breathe and you stretch. Massage those ribs with your breath. And then very gently release. Come out of the twist. I always like to do a little soak cycle. It's like that was the ringing cycle of the washing machine. We're going backwards. We're going soak cycle. From here, you just look up, stick your sitting bones back and apart, and then exhale like cat tilt. So cow-cat. And then we come back to neutral, take a pause before we go second side. So sweeping your other arm to the sky, pausing there to feel the infrastructure. So that's legs and standing arm. They stay steady and square. Everything else, the ribs try to stack one over the other. We find another breath there and massage the inner tissues. And then exhale, release that down. Bring that through the window of your arm and legs to rest on your temple. And you can either just pause there, or you can take your other hand to the crown of the head. I do tippy fingers. And then with the strong infrastructure, anything that's touching earth is the stiram part. And then the ease part is anything that's not touching earth. And you open that elbow to the sky and maybe relax your heart. Maybe relax your jaw, your eyes, your mind. And you just stretch through that elbow. One more breath. Beautiful. And then come on out of it. We're going to take our left leg and bring it to the very center of the mat. The right leg is going to lift up and sneak behind it and tuck in. So now it's like reverse child's pose. So knees are touching, but feet are wide apart. And then square yourself off. So both hands are on the floor, and you just try to square yourself off as best you can so the spine comes up the center of the body. You keep it that way as you pull the hips back. So you try not to, your body's going to want to go over to one side, but you try to keep pulling that arrow of the spine back, and then just kind of walking your fingertips maybe one step forward so you have a stretch going in both directions. Big deep breath here. Feeling that stretch through the hips. Breathe life and energy, rejuvenation, healing into anything that's tight. And then gently using your abdominals, come on back. Unravel your legs. There's your soak cycle, so take a moment to let it happen. Breathe it in. And then the right knee comes in the center of the mat. The left knee lifts up and tucks back behind it. Reverse child's pose. So the feet go wide, the knees are close. And then you look at the spine inside and you drop it straight back like a stretch, but the spine comes through the body like an arrow. The hands can reach forward here as well. And just stretch into those hips and ribs. And I often notice that one rib here likes to bulge a little bit, so you're going to hug it in. Keep that infrastructure. Breathe. Letting that stretch even underneath the armpits. One more breath. Into anything that's tight. Give it some breath love. And then inhale. Come back up to hands and knees. Unravel your legs. Take your big toes touching your knees wide and apart. And then move back like a cow tilt. So you're going to stick your butt out until your forearms come to the floor. And then you keep going. You try to stick the butt out, back, and apart. When you get down, if you get down, booty to the heels, then you'll notice that you've got a little spilling of the pelvic contents. You're going to pick up that and gently tuck them back inside with your abdominals. And let your forehead rest on the floor or a block or your stacked hands, whatever's appropriate for your body. You just breathe here, letting yourself arrive fully into the steadiness of your practice. Drop and release. And I know that's easier said than done, so I have a meditation teacher who tells me, do it in stages. Have 5 stages to your letting go. So the first one, you just let go a little bit. Maybe you release your jaw. You enjoy just that letting go, that dropping in. And then maybe the second stage, you release your head and neck and shoulders. Let them go, drop and release. Enjoy that with a few breaths. Not letting go of that upper quadrant of the body. And maybe you're ready for the third stage where you drop and release the torso. Seeing where you can let go here, just let it go. So now you're feeling jaw, face, shoulders, neck, torso release. Getting ready for stage 4, which might be the hips. Just drop the tension as best you can. And now maybe you're starting to feel this flooding of relaxation from face, jaw, neck, shoulders, upper body, mid-body, hips. And then you drop the tension out of the legs, the knees, the feet, the shins, the toes. Let it go. And you feel how you're just flooding with this sweet release from jaw, face, shoulders, neck, torso, hips, legs. Enjoy all of the letting go, releasing of the tension one step at a time. Feel the steadiness of the legs, the spine crawling through that space that you've created. Make this nice long arrow of energy, which is called the spinal cord. It goes up through the very center of the bones of the back, up through the vertebra. And that lining up of the bones allows for that spinal column, the fluid, the cranial sacral fluid to flow easily, and you can just watch it for a moment. One more breath there. Inhale up to hands and knees. You can cross your ankles. You can sit on back and through. Bring your hands around your knees and just hug them, stepping your feet together. Hug them as tight as you can. See if you can squeeze that barbershop pole longer up through the strong steadiness of the legs. And as you're ready, just start to roll down using your abdominals, maybe even using your hands to hold on. You're trying to round the back. So find the place where your back doesn't round and give it abdominal support. And as you're ready, go a little farther and a little farther until you're all the way, one vertebra at a time, all the way on your back. The arms sweep up, the thumbs interlace, the toes point, and you stretch the front of the body. Long breath here, enjoying that front body stretch. The hips now are your anchor point. They're your steady point, and maybe the heels. And then everything from there is just easy floating up through the crown. Last breath here. And then snow angel your arms down to a comfortable place. They could be T, they could be V, they could be W. And you just let yourself rest there, feeling all four corners of your body symmetrical and rooted steady into the earth. The rest of your body is sukha, easeful, filled with ease, letting go. And this is where I thank you for joining me for your practice. The enlightened one in me honors the enlightened one in you. Namaste. Stay here as long as you'd like. It's your beautiful healing moment. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Namaste.